Hello besties, welcome back to my book channel. Today we are going through all of the books that you guys absolutely need to binge by the pool this summer. And also we're going to talk a little bit at the end of this video about my summer TBR and the books that are on my radar that I'm hoping to read at the pool, on the beach, no questions asked. I did make a summer book recommendations video last year as well, and I tried to do all new books in this year's video. So if you're looking for even more summer book recommendations, a whole new fresh list, I'm gonna link that video in the description box. And then finally, before we dive into all of the incredible book recommendations, I did really quickly want to just kind of explain what I consider to be a binge-worthy summary book. I think my genre taste tends to change a lot depending on the season, and in the summertime my favorite books to read, my favorite genres to read tend to be romance and fiction. I kind of go back to those a lot more at this time of year. However, throughout this video I wanted to make sure that I recommended a diversity of genres, and so I would say the biggest, most common theme throughout this entire video is books that you cannot put down. I'm talking you go to the pool, you pull your book out of your bag, you read it and literally forget that you've been there for 4 hours. Those are my favorite kind of books to read in the summertime. So let's talk about all of the incredible books that I want you guys to have read literally yesterday. The first book that I have to talk about is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. This was a recent read for me. If you guys watched my most recent wrap-up video, then you would know that I rated this 5 stars and will make it my whole entire personality to recommend it to every single person that I can this summer. In this book, we're following our main character, Alice. She is a photographer, and her role this summer is essentially taking care of her nan, who recently got surgery on her hip, I believe, after taking a bad fall. And her nan is obviously really sad, really down about the fact that she has had this surgery, that she's not as mobile as she used to be. And Alice is like, okay, how can I give her a great summer? And so they talk to some family friends and they end up deciding to spend the summer at a lake house together. And while they are there, Alice meets Charlie, the boy living across the lake, and it is his responsibility to make sure that her and her grandma are having a good time, that everything at the cabin is how they need it. And of course, Alice and Charlie fall in love. I was a little bit surprised at how much I loved this book and how much I appreciated it, because I didn't love Charlie's character very much in the first book in this series, but I'd heard so many good reviews, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him a second chance. I'm gonna give this book the good old college try, and I'm so glad that I did. I don't feel like I really need to explain why this book is so summery. It's so obvious from the cover. It says summer in the title. It's beachy, it's on the lake, and it's just quite literally made for the summertime. So that is book number 1. Please read this, I beg you. The next book that I have to talk to you guys about today is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I personally believe out of all of the Taylor Jenkins Reid books that you guys could pick up during the summertime, this is the best one by a mile. In this book, we're following our female main character, Nina Riva, during 1983, the early 1980s. And she is the daughter of a very famous celebrity. And her 3 siblings have sort of become very famous by extension of their father. And this whole book is taking place over the course of one night. And Nina notoriously throws a huge party at their Malibu mansion every single year. But right at the beginning of the book, you know that by the end of the night, their Malibu mansion will have burned to the ground, along with so many other things going terribly wrong. And I just absolutely love this book. The backdrop is perfect California Malibu summer. It's so addicting, such a good poolside read, and I beg you guys to please pick this one up this summer. It's so good. Book 3, and we're already 3 genres in. I'm liking how this is looking. The next book that I have to talk to you guys about is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I personally am a huge fantasy lover, but I don't really think of fantasy as being the most summery genre. However, when I was looking at my list of books that I have read, I honestly got to thinking, and I was like, The House in the Cerulean Sea would be such a fun fantasy to pick up during this time of year, because we are following our main character, character, Linus Baker, who I always forget what it's called, but he works as a caseworker in the department in charge of magical youth. So basically, it's his job to make sure that magical children are doing well, that they're doing okay. And he gets sent on this, I want to call it a mission, but I guess it would be more of an assignment to go and check on these 6 extremely dangerous, extremely magical children. And so he goes on this adventure to the house in the middle of the sea, and there's lots of descriptions of the seaside and the ocean. The characters are really fun and really silly. I will say this book is very slow at times. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily like a page turner. However, I've heard from a lot of people that the audiobook is really addicting, and the audiobook is like the type of story that you don't want to put down. I read this one physically. That's how I read most of my books, I would say. But I think this would be so fun to pick up during the summer, primarily because of the setting and the atmosphere, but secondarily because it's such a light, fun, happy, feel-good story. And those are the kinds of books that I like to read during the summertime. The next book that I have to talk to you guys about is The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. This is Abby Jimenez's newest release. I'm sure you guys have probably been seeing this all over your Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, because she is very well loved by many, including myself. And I had to get my hands on this book right when it came out. And quite honestly, I'm so glad that I did. Look at that cover. Tell me that's not giving like summer nights, fireworks on the lake. Like, ugh. This book was so good and so perfect for summer. I will say I do sort of recommend this book with caution because the trope in this book is boyfriend's best friend. And I will be the first one to tell you that I despise that trope, and I despise any book with cheating or anything of that sort. Quite honestly, like I cannot stand it. So I was hesitant before starting this book, but I just thought that the execution of it was so incredible and quite honestly so realistic. And so in this book, we have our 2 main characters, Larissa and Chris, who meet one night at a concert along with Chris's best friend, Mike. And at the end of the night, Larissa ends up getting a ride home, not from Chris, but from Mike. And shortly thereafter, Larissa and Mike start dating. But without giving any details away, Mike has some challenges that he is working through. And due to those challenges, Larissa and Chris are sort of brought together over and over again. And Chris is like the most reliable, dependable, stable, kind, sweet guy. And Larissa is the most hardworking, loyal girl. And so just reading this book was so fun, so addicting, but also so like anxiety inducing because of the situation. But leave it to Abby Jimenez to make it fun, light, sweet, rom-com, along with lots of deep, very impactful moments. And I'm recommending this book for summertime because there are so many scenes in this book that take place during the summertime doing very summery things. I wouldn't say this book is like exclusively taking place over the summer necessarily, but like there are characters go on hikes together in like the hot sun. They take weekend trips to a lake house, and there are just lots of scenes, barbecues. Oh my God, barbecues are so summer coded. There are just so many scenes in this book that feel very summery, and I could not put this book down. If I could read it again by the pool, I would. I really, really would. Out of all of the books that I'm going to talk about in this video, there is one book in particular that I literally, you had to pry it out of my hands to get me to stop reading it. And that book is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. And quite honestly, I don't feel like the cover of this book is giving summer even slightly. I just don't feel like the cover really does the inside, the contents of this book justice. But I have never been so addicted to a book in my whole entire life. This book, I think technically it's categorized as fiction, but I would argue that as well as being very strongly fiction, it is heavy on mystery and also heavy on a romance or drama plot, subplot. Like all of those things are very prominent forces in this book. In this story, we're following our main character, Beth, and her husband, Frank. They are both farmers. They're living a very sweet and very beautiful life. But right at the beginning of this book, Beth's old lover, Gabriel, comes back into town. And for her and Frank's marriage, it really is for the best if everything that happened between her and Gabriel stays buried. But he is back in town with his son, and his son really reminds Beth of the son that she lost in a tragic accident many years years previously. And then the story really just goes from there. There's not much that I can tell you, but I will say, I think I said this in the last video that I did where I talked about this. The first line of the blurb says, "The farmer is dead, he is dead, and all anyone wants to know is who killed him." So we know that someone dies. We know that there's some kind of drama. There's a trial that's happening all throughout this book. There's lots of different timelines. It's messy, it's fun, it's interesting, and I loved this book so much. While the scenery really changes, like I wouldn't say that every moment of this book feels like peak summer. You're going throughout lots of different time periods, lots of different times of year. The addicting nature is why I think this book would be so good to read during the summer. Like I would absolutely love to read this on the beach and just like I would forget where I was completely. I loved this book. So good. So good. You guys know me and I love to recommend so many different genres, so I had to toss in a little sci-fi or two in here. And again, I don't really think of summer as sci-fi season. However, there's one sci-fi book that I actually think would be so fun to read during this time of year, and that book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This book is so fun. It's like a fun, silly, good time. And what more could you want during the summer? When this book opens, the earth is basically about to be completely destroyed, completely demolished, because I think aliens are like building some sort of highway through space and they have to like move earth out of the way or something crazy like that. And our main character, Arthur, right before all of this is about to happen and he is essentially going to get destroyed with all of the rest of earth, he gets plucked off the planet by his friend who essentially saves him, and they go on fun, silly adventures throughout the galaxy. It is so random. It is so hilarious. It's also short, so quick. You could read this book in a day easily. And you really just follow two characters going on the most hilarious adventure through space. And I'm like, you know what? This book could be perfect any time of year. But if you're gonna pick up a sci-fi during the summer, let it be this one. They're so fun. I also think that this is a series. I've only read the first book, so if it is a series, please do confirm that. I'm not 100%, but it would be so fun. You could like read a bunch of them. You could go through the whole series this summer, and I think that would be really fun too. During these summer book recommendation videos, I do love recommending Christina Lauren books, and I didn't know which one to recommend this year, and I ultimately landed on The Paradise Problem because I read it about a year ago and I haven't had enough opportunities to talk about it yet. So that's kind of why The Paradise Problem got selected. I really did enjoy this book. I had such a fun time. Perfect summertime romance, to the point where if you don't get to it this summer, let it sit on your bookshelf and wait until next summer comes around, because it's just so much better during the summertime, I personally believe. When this book starts, we have our two main characters, Anna and Liam. And for financial reasons, I would say her and Liam end up just getting basically a fake marriage to gain access to the subsidized housing at UCLA. Because like if you're married, you get a much better rate, that whole thing. They're not in love. They're literally just doing this to get these apartments. I went to UCLA also. That is my alma mater. And so that made me obsessed with this book right from the beginning, because I'm like picturing where I went to college, and that just made it so much better. Anyway, they get the deal on their housing. They go their separate ways. They forget that they even knew each other, basically. But then years later, 3 years later, Liam comes back. He finds Anna and he's like, hey, so actually I told my family that we were married, and I need you to come on a trip with me to my family wedding because one of my siblings is getting married and I have to bring you. So they are fake married, and we learn very early on that it turns out their divorce never actually finalized. They are legally still married, and it's hilarious. It's funny. It's silly. And I will say there is so much extravagant wealth in this book, like a wedding on a private island, beautiful dresses, extravagant wedding, everything, like all of that kind of thing. And while that's not normally my taste, I had a really good time with just the extravagance of this book. I mean, I was picturing like crystal clear Bali water. It was so fun for the summertime, and I thought it was really fun and a really great book to pick up during the summertime for obvious reasons. Do I even need to tell you what this book is about? You could just look at the cover and immediately know that this is such a good book to pick up during the summertime. This is The Guncle by Stephen Rowley, and this is a book that I just love to come back to every few months and recommend people because it was such a sweet and happy story. In this book, we are following Patrick, who his niece and nephew call him Gup, which stands for Gay Uncle Patrick. And it's really cute. They have a really sweet relationship. And at the beginning of the book, something pretty tragic, I would say, happens in Macy and what's the nephew's name? Maisie and Grant. Something tragic happens in their family. And so Patrick takes on the primary guardian role temporarily for the summer. He is trying to show Maisie and Grant a good time. He's trying to take them all over Palm Desert. He also used to be a pretty well-known Hollywood actor, and he is retired now. And it's one of those books where the kids are learning a lot from Patrick, but Patrick is also learning a lot from the kids. And I really love stories like that. They're just like heartwarming and they fill me up. They make me feel really good and really happy inside. And this was definitely one of those books. Look at that cover. Again, like I can't get over it. I had to recommend this during the summer. Palm Desert, the pools, the golf courses, the actors, it was so fun. Need I say more? Really sweet, happy, heartfelt, family friendly fiction. Love this. Ashley Poston is another author who I absolutely love. And so the question isn't if I'm going to recommend one of her books, it's which one of her books can I recommend to you guys. And after kind of looking at I think I've read 4 of her books, I really do believe that this one is just the perfect book for summer. And in this story, we are following Clementine, who has recently lost her aunt. And they were very, very close. Like I would say they have a closer than average relationship than I would say most people maybe do with their aunts, their extended family. And her aunt leaves Clementine a brownstone apartment in New York City. And when Clementine was growing up, her aunt would always tell her, this is a magical apartment. This is an apartment that slips in time 7 years. Like it moves around in time. And you don't get to make the rules. The apartment makes the rules. It just decides when it wants to move around in time. As someone who doesn't really love time travel in my books, like I would argue that that's one of my least favorite things to read about. This is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. I think it just handled the magic and the romance and just, magical realism in general was so stunning and so incredible. And so obviously Clementine is moving into this apartment thinking, oh, that was just my aunt being cute, fun, silly. Clearly there's no magic happening here, actually. But no, she moves in and lo and behold, the apartment slips back in time 7 years and there is a man sleeping in her apartment. And she's like, oh my God, what is happening? And obviously they fall in love and it's really cute and really sweet. And I really want to read this book again. This is one of my favorite romances of all time. Quite honestly, there's not really any one reason that I'm recommending it for the summertime. I personally read it in the summer. I read it in like July, August time. So I strongly associate this book with this time of year, this season. I had a very positive experience, and so I'm saying now hopefully you can have a positive experience and read this incredible book. Up next is a book that I have not really recommended on my channel very many times. Also, it's not really the type of book that I expect myself to like. If you guys know me, then you know that I love very layered, very complex characters, a really well fleshed out fiction story, a really well created and well invented fantasy world. Like I like it when there's a lot of depth and a lot of layers and it's fun and it's sweet, but it's heartfelt and it's touching and it makes you see something different. And this is so not normally what I love, but tell me why I had such a good time reading this book when I did read it. This is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I'm not really a Tessa Bailey girl, but if we're talking perfect, silly, fun books to read by the pool, you're gonna have to read this one at some point. Our main character in this story is named Piper, and she is, I don't know if she is famous, but it says here is fashionable and influential, and she has a wild reputation with the paparazzi. I think her family's just like mega rich from what I remember. And she kind of takes things a little bit too far one night, and to punish her, her dad sends her off. He like ships her out of LA to this little tiny town in Washington to kind of be grounded and to find herself and to realize what real people and real problems actually look like. This is like epitome of grumpy sunshine, which is also like my least favorite romance trope. So it's just like kind of bizarre that I enjoyed this book as much as I did. So she is like super sunshine, ignorant, fun, light, whatever, sexy. We love it. And she meets our fisherman. Is it Brandon? Brendan. She meets our grumpy fisherman, Brendan, and they fall in love. And it is so fun. It's sexy and smutty. And why do I love this book so much? I don't know. I really don't know. But I had such a great time reading this book. Also, I read this in like February and I regret it to this day. I'm like, I should have saved this for reading it on the beach in LA. Like I should have done that. I didn't. And so this is me suggesting to you guys to read this book in the summertime because you can and because you have free will. This book is really fun, not really my normal taste, as I think I've made quite plain. But just in case you have similar taste to me, maybe this will be kind of a random book that you love too. So it happened one summer. Tessa Bailey literally has summer in the title. And then the final book for the recommendations portion of this video before we switch into my personal summer TBR is a book that I feel like I had to talk about in honor of the movie that has come out, and that is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and I have really, I think, you guys can let me know. I think I've done a good job not talking about it quite as often as I used to. I feel like there are a few books that it takes everything in me not to just put them in every single video and just shove them down your throat. But I think enough time has gone by and there's literally a movie out. Haven't seen it yet, but I will be watching it very, very soon. And so I'm like, this is the perfect time to recommend Remarkably Bright Creatures. If it's got the ocean on the cover, sea creatures, I'm like, literally convince me not to read this book in the summer. I love this book. In this story, we have our main character, Tova, and she is older and she's sort of at a point in her life where she has lost a lot. Her husband has passed away. We know that her son went missing many years prior. And so she ends up getting a job at the local aquarium being a cleaning lady. And while she is working there, she builds a bit of a relationship, a connection, if you will, to the octopus that lives there, Marcellus. Marcellus is so much fun and so silly because he actually gets a POV in this book, and we get access into Marcellus's thoughts, and he is very analytical of the human species. He's like, there's just so many inner monologues of like, why do humans act like this? Ah yes, the cleaning lady did this to me and it made me feel this. And he is so fun and so silly. It's just truly a perfect feel-good story. And if you guys are like, oh, do I read the book first before watching the movie? Yes. This is me sneaking in any opportunity to tell you to read this book because it is so good and so fun. And I think people hear that there's like an octopus with a thought with like POV in here and they're like, oh, I won't like that book. I felt the same, but I loved it. He is so fun, the silliest little character ever. This is such a fun little sweet fiction book to pick up this summer. Okay, now let's talk about my TBR for the summer. And first, I think it'd be good to just start with a couple books on my physical TBR. A couple of these you guys have probably seen from TBR wheel videos that I have done. Start with a physical TBR, and then there are a few books that I do not own yet, but I want to, and I want to read them during the summertime. The physical TBR, honestly, guys, it's not like the most summery stack. I just really like to read the books that I own, but then I feel like it gets more summery as we go along. I'm also going to go through these pretty quickly because I don't really know what a lot of them are about or what the vibes are. So the first one is The Bright Years by Sarah Damoff. I got to see Sarah Damoff talk at an author interview recently, and she signed my book, which is so cool. And I got to meet her and talk to her, and she was just the kindest, sweetest person ever. And this book is going to crush me. The friends that I went to go see the author talk with have already read this book, and they were like, I literally bawled my eyes out at the end. And so I'm really, really excited to read this book. And it's short, but I know it's going to pack a punch. And so I'm really excited about getting into this story. I don't know if it's summery. It takes place in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I believe. So if it takes place during the summertime, maybe it's a little bit summery, but I'm pretty excited about this. Then next we have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is a Greek retelling of the story of the Princess Ariadne, Princess of Crete. This was picked in my most recent TBR wheel video. Also, so sorry, the clouds are really in and out today. Don't know why. So the lighting has probably been changing a lot throughout this video. But yeah, this was a gift. One of my good friends got this for me for my birthday, and I just love Greek retelling stories. And so I don't know why I feel like this would be great to read during the summer. I don't really have any strong reason to feel that way, but I just feel like it would be so fun. It's one of the few books left on my physical TBR, so this is on my radar for the next couple months. Then we have When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This is the first book in an interconnected standalone romance quartet. That was a mouthful. And I'm not really going to talk about this because I have picked it in not one but two TBR wheel videos recently. And I am really trying to make this one a priority. What romance isn't perfect for the summer? Literally none. I think summer's perfect for romances. And finally, from the physical TBR, we have Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This would be my third Sally Rooney book. I, at this point, have read Normal People as well as Beautiful World, Where Are You? I definitely prefer Normal People over Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I just feel unsure. I've had a different experience with the two Sally Rooney books that I've read. And so I would love to read Conversations with Friends and kind of just see where it stands on my Sally Rooney hierarchy, my Sally Rooney ranking. Again, don't know if this is summary, but I think it's gonna be fun. I really think I'm gonna like this one. Finally, let's speed run the last few books that I do not own but want to read this summer. The first one is The Shampoo Effect by Jenny Jackson. I wrote about this book in my June newspaper, the Cozy Reader News. And as I was researching the books that I was putting in my newspaper, I was like, oh my gosh, out of all of them, this was the book that I was like, I didn't know anything about this book, but all of a sudden I'm so excited to read it and get my hands on it. And the cover is literally a woman, I think it's a woman at the beach, but it's a group of friends. It takes place over the summer and it's just very complicated and very messy. And I love drama. That's my favorite thing in a book. And I'm pretty sure that this is literally just friend drama on the beach. And I'm like, okay, I need to get that ASAP. Then next is Into the Blue by Emma Brody. I have been seeing this all over my social media, just like I'm sure you guys have been. The thing with this book is there are creators who I really know and trust to have very similar book taste to me, rating this book 5 stars. And so when books go really, really viral or they get really, really popular, I never really know if I want to pick up a book because it's popular or because I'm genuinely intrigued by the premise and the writing and all of that kind of thing. And so because there are creators that I really, really trust with their reviews, and I'm like, okay, we have such similar taste, I really want to pick up this book, and it's definitely feeling like a 5-star prediction, which is crazy. I'm excited about this one. It's a romance, and that's kind of all that I know. I think it's a romance and the main characters are actors. That's all I got. Number 7 is Yesteryear, and this is a book that I honestly feel like I predicted how viral it was gonna go, which is so funny. Again, in my newspaper, if you guys don't know, I write a newspaper for readers every single month. And in my newspaper, I always talk about books that I think are gonna be the next big thing, that I think people are going to be obsessed with. And this is the book that I have I feel knocked out of the park because I wrote about it months ago, and then now it is just the book. Everyone has it, everyone's reading it, people are texting me, asking me if I've read it, and I'm like, wow, I totally called that in my newspaper. And this is another time travel book. We have a woman who gets thrust back into a different time period, and she is an influencer pretending to be a trad wife, and then she goes back and is in the time period of trad wives, and it's just sounds so chaotic but so good. And I would really love to read it this summer, and I also am I literally predicted the virality of this, so I want to read it. And then finally, the last book that I do not own but hope to read this summer is The Happily Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. I am slowly working my way through Abby Jimenez backlist because I just love her that much. I love her books so much, and I feel kind of like a fake fan when I'm oh my god, I'm so obsessed with her, but I haven't read all her books yet. And so I'm kind of just playing catch up with her original trilogy. I have 2 more books left to go, and then I will be fully caught up with the Abby Jimenez cinematic universe or like book universe or whatever that's called. So I also, the character, I don't want to dive into the details, but the character that we're following in this book really got kind of screwed in, kind of mega screwed in the first book in this series. So I would really just love to see a happy ending for her. So I'm really looking forward to picking up this book. It should be on Kindle Unlimited if I'm not mistaken, which is great because I pay for that and I would like to use it. I've been sitting here and talking for so long, and honestly, my voice is getting kind of tired. I don't know if you guys can tell that I am losing some steam, but I am really tired. That brings us to the end of my summer book recommendations as well as my summer TBR. If there are any books that you guys think that I should be reading this summer, or on the other hand, if you have any books on your summer TBR that you're just so excited about, jumping up and down, cannot wait to read them, please let me know. And with that, comment down below the sun emoji so I know who made it all the way here. And I think that's going to be it from me. I hope you guys are having the best day and the best reading month, and I will see you next Saturday for my next bookish upload. Bye!